So the UFC has decided to fast-track Payton Talbott into the top 10 of the bantamweight rankings, and that doesn't really surprise me, honestly. What does surprise me is the choice of opponent. Talbott's going to be facing off against former double champ Henry Cejudo, and we've never really seen this before where a double champ has lost their belts and continued fighting in the rankings. They've usually went up a division or retired altogether, like DC, McGregor, these guys. So Talbott has the opportunity of a lifetime here to really blow up his career this early into the UFC. Getting the opportunity to fight a double champion like Henry, a guy who has wins over Demetrius Johnson, finished TJ Dillashaw, finished Cruz. I'm seeing a lot of people actually upset with this matchup here. I guess they want Payton Talbott to, properly rebuild. And, I get it. This fight kind of came out of left field a little bit, and casuals are sort of calling it, gay kid versus former GOAT. It's more than that, okay? Because the Raoni Barcelos loss wasn't that long ago. He sort of quickly got back in there against Felipe Lima and got his bounce-back win. Super impressive, by the way. And my thoughts on the Barcelos loss, Talbott came out really aggressive, like he usually does, really hungry for that KO over Barcelos. And I don't really blame him for it because Barcelos not too long ago had been completely starched and stretchered by Umar Nurmagomedov by a fairly light-looking punch as well. But Barcelos had an excellent performance against Talbott, really neutralized all that pressure and reversed Payton. The takedowns came pretty easy. Too many minutes went by of him just being neutralized on the ground, so Barcelos took the fight. Way too much control time and ground strikes for Talbott to have any success. Didn't go his way, oh well. Barcelos, very tricky guy, sort of an unk of bantamweight, so not the greatest look. But if you actually do your research on Raoni Barcelos, he comes from a family of BJJ coral belts, and he actually has tons of accolades as well in Brazil, Brazilian wrestling championships and stuff like this. So when you factor that into the fight, yes, Payton Talbott is far younger and should have gotten that win by hook or by crook, but Barcelos isn't a slouch, so I know the visual ain't great. Payton Talbott, undefeated, loses to a bantamweight unk, but if you do your research, Barcelos is a tricky customer, all things considered. Talbott came in, wasn't able to get that done, still very early into his career, no problem. And then got Felipe Lima as the bounce-back opponent, which is prospect v. prospect. I was a little worried about how that one would go. We picked Talbott on the channel, and he got it done by a fairly dominant decision. Felipe Lima shot about 15 takedowns. Talbott stuffed almost all of them, and was actually the one that ended up with more control time in the bout. Had some slick reversals in there. Used his pressure really well, his power really well. Broke down Felipe Lima, got a big strike lead, and ran away with that one. So great bounce back there. And the matchmakers clearly liked that performance because here he is, booked to face Henry Cejudo December 6th. What a massive opportunity, first of all. I couldn't be happier for him. This is like the ultimate gift as a prospect. You get to come in and fight not only a former champion, but a former double champ with like a big, big legacy. This is incredible if Talbott can pull this off. I'm taking him to win the fight, first of all. But I still recognize Henry Cejudo as a really capable guy. Had a competitive fight with Song Yadong last time out. This weird controversial ending where he got eye poked and all this sort of stuff. Henry Cejudo is still very, very capable. He's got that flyweight mobility. He is decorated in wrestling. He's going to be way smaller than Talbott, so I don't think that'll play in too heavily here. Talbott's got like a 5-inch height advantage here. He's got the reach. He's got the punch power edge. But still very green in his career, which makes this matchup so exciting for me. This will really show if Talbott is the real deal. I know Henry Cejudo said this is his last fight, as he is getting fairly old for the bantamweight division. And he says he's got, podcast, other businesses he wants to, run properly and dip out of the sport. But I also think if he beats Payton Talbott, that's a lot of hype and attention as well. And that might just convince Henry Cejudo to stick around in the sport a bit longer. So I'm not entirely buying into that either. I think this is probably the best fight on that pay-per-view, honestly, in terms of stakes in the bantamweight division. Either Henry Cejudo, takes out Payton Talbott and the sport goes crazy, or Talbott comes in, does what he's supposed to do, comes in and has an even more impressive rise than Sean O'Malley, who got to skip the entirety of the rankings. That's incredible. He will not jump to the top of the rankings, but he'll jump to number 10 with an unbelievable amount of hype to his name, especially if he can knock out Henry Cejudo, which is a very real possibility, I think. Talbott is a dangerous, dangerous striker. It's why I'm such a big fan. I know he's very controversial outside the cage. I don't really care. This new age of fan really likes to live vicariously through fighters. These people who just get hung up on the fighters themselves and, idolize them, live vicariously through them. And yes, that is kind of rich considering he is my profile pick on this YouTube channel. So I'll be going with a Talbott victory. I think he can actually pull this off. And man, I'm so happy for Talbott. This is such a big opportunity in the UFC right now for him. He's so green in his UFC career, and this is such an incredible opportunity that he could just completely take off, shoot up the rankings. First of all, Henry Cejudo I don't think is washed. That will be the narrative after Talbott gets this win because people just can't stand Talbott. It'll go from, oh, Talbott's undeserving, what is this matchup, he's not going to win, he'll be fraud checked again, he doesn't have the wrestling. It will quickly turn into Henry's done, he's near a 40-year-old bantamweight, he's washed, but I actually think Henry Cejudo is still capable of getting wins. He's in the bantamweight division with that flyweight mobility, that flyweight fight IQ. He is an Olympic wrestler. I know he doesn't show it often, but that does come into play. He's an incredibly physical guy, he's got great blitz, karate blitzes. Do think he's very capable still. He was having a competitive fight with Song Yadong, who is close to or in his prime, and it ends with a bit of a controversial eye poke situation. But for what it's worth, Henry Cejudo is still capable, has crazy finish victories over Cruz, Dillashaw. And for what it's worth, I know he says he's retiring after this fight, but if he's able to go in there and have a really good performance and look like his younger self against Talbott, a surging bantamweight prospect, I don't think Henry Cejudo is going to leave because he'll just have gained himself an incredible amount of momentum. Why would you leave there? Give it one more shot. The UFC is also a big fan of Henry. They might give him, a number one contender fight off that or another championship opportunity down the line. So don't believe that this is his retirement fight just yet. That might just be what he's saying to the cameras. We're in for a crazy fight. I think the fight will be an entertaining battle. And there's just incredible stakes on it. Both ways here. Incredible stakes for both guys' careers on a stacked December pay-per-view with the main event being Merab Petr Yan's rematch. That's also incredible. But for these big matchups, when they announce these pay-per-views, when Uncle Dana hops on his live and just drops nukes like this, gotta make a video on it. Talbott's gonna get the win. I'm not writing off Cejudo though. It's a tough fight for both guys. Both have great styles. Talbott's the guy who's younger, bigger, more punch power, but probably also slower in this fight. Henry Cejudo is a bit aged, but he's got just a ton of championship-level experience. He's a risk taker as well, or at least he used to be. He's got good flyweight mobility. He's harder to hit than people say. I think he's a much better striker than he is like an Olympic wrestler. I know that's sort of what people label him as, but his stand-up's also really good. Just had a great fight with Song Yadong. That sort of didn't end the greatest and didn't really get extended. But this fight's amazing. Down below, comment your thoughts on the matchup. Comment who you think's going to win. We've got a while until it's actually here, December 6th, but that pay-per-view is colossal, okay? So let's get talking about it now. As always, thank you guys for watching the content. I'll see you next time.